Now that we know the differentiation between macroeconomics and microeconomics, we can now talk about the similarities between both of these subjects. So here, what do macroeconomists and microeconomists share in common with one another? And one of the biggest things that both of these subjects share in common with one another is model building. In order for macroeconomists and microeconomists to answer any type of economic question, they're going to go ahead and build some type of model. And you might think that because the economy is complex, firms, individuals, they're all complex, economists are always going to want to use complex models, but that's actually the furthest thing from the truth. Economic analysis uses very simplified models. Here, we want to go ahead and boil things down to their simplest elements in order for us to get some type of workable interpretation and some type of workable answer. So with all of this, with model building, we're going to go ahead and focus in on just a few variables at a time, maybe one or two, in order to answer any type of question that we may have. We're not going to build complex models right away, because if we build complex models right off the bat, that's going to lead to very, very complex and abstruse answers, and that's not something that we want in economics. We just want to go ahead, take the simplest elements, build up a very simplified model, and just get some type of interpretation that we can work with. Because when we work with very simplified models, that's going to lead to a lot of some type of implications for us that we can go ahead and build upon. So in the vast majority of models that we work with within this particular semester, we're only going to be focusing in on two particular variables, at most three at a time. So anytime we have some type of illustration, graph, table, we tend to focus in on two main variables. In the biggest model that we go ahead and take a look at with supply and demand, we only focus in on price and quantity. And that's actually enough for us to get some type of workable interpretation about where equilibrium is going to be in a particular market. We don't focus in on all the confounding other sort of factors or other variables, because once again, that's going to go ahead and make our analysis much, much more complex, and that's not something that we want. So anytime we want to answer a question, we want to go ahead and use simplified models, boiling things down to its simplest elements. And it's not going to be sort of indicative of reality. The main goal isn't trying to sort of replicate what happens in reality to a T, because we just want to once again just get some type of workable interpretation or workable answer. We don't want to make things very complex right off of the bat. And in order to help us build our entire models, we're going to make a whole bunch of use of assumptions once again. So we had the three previous assumptions from before. We had people are going to respond to incentives, people are very self-interested, and then once again, people are going to be seen as rational. And the additional assumption that we built up here is something known as ceteris paribus, where all other relevant factors or variables are held constant. So ceteris paribus just means it's just going to be held constant, all things the same, leaving everything else the same. And that just tells us that we're going to be focusing in on the impact of variable A on variable B. We're not going to go ahead and focus in on other relevant factors that we might think that might want to be go ahead and included within our question. We just want to go ahead and focus in on the two main variables in this end. So let's go ahead and use this question right here in order to see this ceteris paribus assumption being built into play a little bit more. So here, let's go ahead and take a look at this ceteris, let me see if I can spell correctly, ceteris paribus example. So once again, ceteris paribus just means leaving everything else the same. Everything is going to be held constant. And the question that you saw on that slide is, what effect does increased government spending have on economic growth? What effect does increased government spending have on economic growth? And as you can see from this question right here, we're only going to be focusing in on two variables. We have government spending and economic growth. And what impact does increased government spending have on economic growth? Is it going to increase economic growth? Is it going to decrease economic growth? Does it have no impact on economic growth? These are the only two things that we should be focusing in on. We want to leave every other single relevant factor or variable constant according to ceteris paribus. So suppose that we didn't have the ceteris paribus sort of assumption being built into place? What are a few other things or a few other variables that you might think that would be affecting economic growth? Or what are other things that you think should be included in this question? Taking this into account, you might think, hey, what about unemployment? Unemployment. What about income? What about taxes? These are all macroeconomic variables or factors that could be included in this question right here, but because we want to go ahead and invoke the ceteris paribus assumption right here, we want to go ahead and leave all of these variables right here constant, meaning that they're not going to have any impact or any bearing on how this question is going to be answered. So all these are left constant, meaning that they have no impact because we're invoking the ceteris paribus assumption. Therefore, when we invoke ceteris paribus, we only want to see the impact of variable A, this government spending, on variable B, which is economic growth. So just to go ahead and complete this example, once again, just give you another example with the ceteris paribus, we can go a little bit more on a micro level, invoking the ceteris paribus as well. So here, let's go ahead and ask how many public subs will you buy when the price increases? Will you buy when the price increases? So here, suppose that there are chicken tender subs, very, very delicious. So here, how many Publix chicken tender subs will you buy when the price increases? Ceteris paribus, meaning holding everything else constant. So what are the two variables we want to focus in on with this question? Number one, we want to focus in on the price. So what happens when the price changes? And variable B right here is the quantity of these Publix subs. So here, when the price increases, how is that going to change how many Publix subs that you are going to buy? So here we have a price-quantity relationship, and that's going to be the law of demand, as we're going to see in chapter number 3. But with this question right here, what are a few variables that we want to state, that we want to leave constant? What are things that should not be included in answering this question? Well, we can go ahead and take a look at things like your income. You can go ahead and take a look at the quality of these subs as well. So we know that if you go to different Publixes, the quality of the subs is going to vastly differ from one another. We can go ahead and take a look at how hungry you are. How hungry you are. We can go ahead and take a look at things that like how high you are as well. So with all of this right here, these are all variables that can be relevant in terms of answering this question, but because we are invoking the ceteris paribus assumption, we want to leave all these things constant as well. So your income, your quality of the sub, how hungry you are, how high you are. These subs are pretty great when you're high. Not that I would know, but just from overhearing this. But with this question right here, we want to go ahead and just focus in on these two main variables right here: the quantity of the subs and then the price of the subs. What happens when the price changes? Are you going to increase the subs, decrease the subs, or is the quantity of the subs going to remain constant? So ceteris paribus, this is a very important assumption because it is going to simplify our analysis a lot more. Anytime you focus in on an economic question, you just want to go ahead and focus in on what the question is asking you. You do not want to try and bring in other relevant variables or other relevant factors, because that can quickly lead you down to an incorrect conclusion. And this is going to become very, very apparent with a lot of the things that we take a look at within this semester. So with the other three assumptions that we had, the ceteris paribus also include this one anytime you want to answer an economic question. Another thing that we focus in on with macro and microeconomics, another similarity that we see, is what do they tend to focus in on a little bit more? Do they care a little bit more about efficiency, or do they care a little bit more about equity? So efficiency, as you can see right here, is how well resources are used and allocated, while equity deals with the fairness of various issues and policies. So knowing a sort of brief definition of each of these concepts right here, which one do you think economists are going to be a little bit more concerned about? Efficiency or issues of equity? Economists are going to be concerned with issues of efficiency a little bit more, because we believe that we are better equipped to answer issues of efficiency rather than issues of equity. So efficiency, as you can see right here, deals with how well resources are used and allocated, and we can actually break down this idea of efficiency into two different categories of efficiency. We take a look at production and allocative efficiency. So production efficiency first. So with production efficiency, This is just going to tell us that we are producing goods at its lowest possible cost, or are using all of our resources to its maximum extent or its maximum usage. So production efficiency occurs when goods are produced, produced at the lowest possible cost. At the lowest possible cost. Also, using all resources to maximum usage. So, sort of two definitions of this. So, we can also say using all resources to maximum usage. We can just go ahead and say fullest extent. Meaning that we have no slack at all. We're using up all of our factors of production: land, labor, physical capital, and technology. So with production efficiency, we just want to go ahead and see how all of our resources are being used, and we'll go ahead and see how this is going to come into play with our production possibilities frontier in chapter number 2. The second type of efficiency, as we've noted already, that we can talk about is allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency. With allocative efficiency, this is going to occur when individuals who desire the product the most is the one that actually gets those goods or services. So occurs when individuals who desire the product the most gets those goods or services. Gets those goods/services. So it's essentially saying that whoever desires the product the most should be the first one that gets that good or service. And in order for us to have efficiency just in general, we need to have both production and allocative efficiency at the same time. There can be some instances where we just have production efficiency, but not necessarily allocative efficiency. And once again, we'll take a closer look at that in chapter number 2 once we introduce our model. So an example of allocative efficiency right here is, suppose that there's about 100 of us taking this class right here. And suppose that I have one Miami Marlins ticket, one Miami Marlins baseball ticket. In order for us to have allocative efficiency, what do we need to do? So I would ask all of you, who here likes the Marlins the most? And knowing the Marlins, you guys probably, none of you would raise your hand. So suppose that I like the Marlins the most for some strange reason. In order for us to have allocative efficiency, who should be getting this particular ticket? Well, because I'm the one that said I like the Marlins the best, I like the Marlins the most, I'm the one that raised my hand first. In order for us to have allocative efficiency, I would be the one to get this particular ticket. So here, because I am desiring the product the most, and I am getting this particular good, therefore we have achieved allocative efficiency with this one particular ticket. However, would you consider this outcome to be a sort of fair or equitable? And it wouldn't necessarily be fair or equitable because there's over 100 of us in this particular class, but we only have one ticket. So what would be a little bit more of a fair outcome in this instance? A little bit of a more fair outcome would be to go ahead and put everybody's name into a hat, and whoever's name gets drawn at random, that would be whoever gets this one ticket in this instance. And that's where we deal with issues of equity instead, the fairness of various issues and policies. However, with issues of equity, we typically don't want to answer these equitable issues in economics because we believe that government officials, policymakers, are a little bit better equipped to answer issues of equity. So anytime we deal with questions in economics, we tend to deal with issues of efficiency, both on an allocative and production sense, and we don't tend to ask a whole bunch of issues of equity. So once again, take a look at the similarities and differentiation between these two. And then finally, the last sort of concept that we can go ahead and take a look at the similarities of macro and macroeconomics is what type of questions do we want to ask? We can take a look at positive questions, or we can take a look at normative questions. With positive questions, these can be answered by available information or facts. So these are going to be a little bit more objective in nature. There is a right answer and there is a wrong answer with positive questions. With normative questions, these addresses society's beliefs about what should or should not take place. So this is going to be a little bit more subjective in nature. So there is really no right or wrong answer with normative questions. So once again, which one do you think economists are going to be a little bit more concerned about answering? Positive questions or normative questions? Knowing this, we know that economists are going to be a little bit more concerned about answering positive questions or asking positive questions in this case, because there is a right answer, there is a wrong answer. So once again, just like with the issues of efficiency, we feel that we are a little bit better equipped to answer issues of we are a little bit better equipped to answer positive questions rather than normative questions, where normative questions can be answered a little bit better by government officials or government policy makers. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few examples of positive and normative questions in order to take a look at the final sort of concept of the similarities of macro and microeconomists. So here, take a look at these positive questions. So positive questions, and remember that these positive questions are going to be a little bit more objective in nature. Objective meaning that, hey, there is a right answer, there is a wrong answer. So therefore, we just want to focus a little bit more on this with economics in general. So what would be an example of a positive question economists might want to answer? Here, let's go ahead and ask, what happens to individuals, or so we can say households, say consumption slash savings behavior, when there is some type of universal basic income. When universal basic income is implemented. So universal basic income, UBI for short, is something that has gotten a lot of traction over the past few years. So here, this just tells us that this is a type of positive question because we can exactly see we have some type of data, there is some type of information that allows us to answer this type of question. We can track individuals' consumption habits, we can track individual savings habits when we implement some type of universal basic income within the economy, or even just on a smaller level, say on a city-wide level as well. So here, there is a right answer, there is a wrong answer, there is some type of available facts and information to back up this question. So this is an example of a positive question. It's an objective question that we might be interested in answering under economics. However, we can always turn some type of positive question into a normative question. So how can we transform this question into something that is a little bit more normative? Normative questions. And remember that with normative questions, these are going to be a little bit more subjective in nature. Subjective meaning that there is no right answer, there is no wrong answer. So we can transform this positive question into a normative question by asking, should universal basic income be implemented? And once again, there is really no right answer, there is really no wrong answer with these normative questions. It has to deal with your own beliefs, your own sentiments. So there are a lot of people that believe that yes, we should have a universal basic income, while there are also a lot of people that don't believe we should have a universal basic income. And this is where the government is going to come into play, and this is where they are going to answer this normative question, where economists really don't want to answer this right or wrong answer. There's really no right or wrong answer in terms of these normative questions. We want to focus a little bit more on what the data provides to us. So once again, we want to focus in on issues of efficiency, and we want to try to ask more positive type of questions. We want to go away from issues of equity and asking normative questions. That's where government officials and policymakers are a little bit better equipped to answer those type of things. So with all of this, we've gone ahead and taken a look at things that both macro and microeconomists share in common with one another, particularly with positive and normative questions. We take a look at efficiency versus equity and the whole bunch of assumptions that they like to use as well in order to build up their models. In order to finish up the rest of the chapter, we want to go ahead and focus in on a few of the key principles that we're going to see both in macro and microeconomics, and things that we're going to be seeing throughout the rest of the semester, particularly with our next 3 chapters. I'll see you guys there.